The tomatoes were gone again. Alina Martinez knelt in her garden, staring at the empty vines where her prize beefsteaks had hung just yesterday. Perfect red globes, weeks of careful tending, vanished without a trace. No animal tracks in the soil. No scattered peels or seeds. Just clean breaks where the stems had been carefully cut. She stood slowly, her 60-year-old knees protesting, and surveyed the damage. 3 tomatoes, 2 bell peppers, and a handful of carrots. The thief had been selective, taking only what was ripe and ready. Almost respectful, if theft could be called that. 3rd time this month, she muttered, brushing dirt from her gardening gloves. The police had been useless, suggesting she install security cameras for vegetables. As if anyone would waste money on that. Alina had retired from her botany career 5 years ago, moving to this quiet house on the outskirts of Millbrook specifically for the large backyard. The garden had become her sanctuary, rows of vegetables and herbs stretching toward the pine forest that bordered her property. She'd never had children, pouring her nurturing instincts into growing things instead. The sunset painted the sky orange as she gathered what remained of her harvest. Tomorrow, she'd have to check the motion lights she'd installed last week. Maybe catch this mysterious thief in the act. She was heading inside when she heard it. A soft rustling from the corn stalks at the garden's far end. Alina froze, listening. There it was again, deliberate movement, not the random sway of wind. Her heart hammered as she crept closer, garden shears gripped in her hand. The corn stalks parted, and Alina's world changed forever. The woman was tall and impossibly thin, her pale blue skin almost translucent in the dying light. She clutched 2 tomatoes against her chest with hands that had too many fingers, each ending in delicate points. Her large, dark eyes met Alina's with a mixture of fear and desperate determination. Alina's mouth opened, but no sound came out. The shears slipped from her nerveless fingers. The alien woman, because that's what she had to be, took a step backward. She wore what looked like a tattered silver jumpsuit, torn in several places and stained with dirt. Her head was elongated, crowned with wispy tendrils instead of hair. When she spoke, her voice was musical despite the obvious distress. "Please," she whispered in accented but clear English. "My children are hungry." Alina stared, her scientific mind racing even as shock paralyzed her body. First contact. Alien life. Standing in her vegetable garden, holding stolen tomatoes like a common thief. You can speak," Alina managed. "We learned your language from your broadcasts," the woman said, still clutching the tomatoes. "I'm sorry for taking. We have no choice." Alina's gaze traveled over the alien's gaunt frame, the way her strange clothing hung loose. She was starving. The realization hit Alina like a physical blow. "How many children?" Alina asked quietly. 3, the woman replied, her voice breaking. "The youngest is very weak. Our food supplies—" She trailed off, looking down at the tomatoes as if ashamed. Alina's hands trembled as she reached for the fallen shears, but instead of threatening, she moved to the nearest tomato plant and began cutting the ripest fruits. The alien woman watched in confusion as Alina filled her arms with vegetables. "Take these," Alina said, offering the harvest. "Take all of it." The woman's large eyes filled with what might have been tears. "You would help us?" "I would help any mother trying to feed her children," Alina replied firmly. "Where are you staying?" The alien hesitated, clearly torn between gratitude and caution. "In the mountains. Our ship. We crashed 3 months ago." "How many of you?" 47 survived. The woman's voice was barely audible. "We're refugees from Kepler 442 bits. Our planet is dying." Alina's scientific background kicked in. Kepler 442 bits was a confirmed exoplanet, potentially habitable. But dying? What happened to your world? "Solar storms. Our star became unstable. We had to leave." The woman clutched the vegetables tighter. We've been traveling for 2 years, looking for a new home. And you chose Earth. We had no choice. Our ship was damaged. We barely made it here. Alina looked into those alien eyes and saw the same desperation she'd witnessed in human mothers during famines she'd studied in her botanical work. The same fierce protectiveness, the same willingness to risk everything for their young. "What's your name?" Alina asked. "Kira," the woman replied. "I'm Elena. Come back tomorrow night, Kira. I'll have more food ready." Kira's expression transformed, hope replacing fear. "You do this for strangers. For children who are hungry," Elena corrected. "Any children." As Kira melted back into the darkness, Alina stood alone in her garden, vegetables scattered at her feet. Everything she'd known about the universe had just shifted. And somehow, in that moment of cosmic significance, all she could think about was a mother's love transcending species. She had work to do. Alina couldn't sleep. She sat at her kitchen table, surrounded by notebooks and her old tablet, researching everything she could find about Kepler 442 bits. The scientific papers painted a grim picture, a potentially habitable planet orbiting an increasingly unstable K-type star. Recent observations had detected unusual solar activity, massive coronal mass ejections that would indeed make the world uninhabitable. Kira had told the truth. At dawn, Elena drove to the farmer's market in town, buying quantities of fresh produce that made the vendors raise eyebrows. She paid cash, avoiding questions, her mind racing with plans. 47 refugees. Adults and children, all hungry, hiding in the mountains while their ship lay damaged somewhere in the wilderness. She returned home and spent the day organizing supplies, filling boxes with fruits, vegetables, and canned goods from her pantry. As evening approached, her nervous energy intensified. She was harboring aliens. Refugees, yes, but the government would see it differently. The military, the scientists, the politicians. They'd all want to study these beings, not help them. Alina pushed those thoughts away. Right now, children were hungry. Everything else could wait. Kira appeared just after sunset, moving silently through the corn stalks. She carried a woven basket made from what looked like metallic fibers, and Elena noticed she walked with a slight limp. "You came back," Kira said, surprise evident in her musical voice. "I promised I would." Elena gestured to the boxes she'd arranged near the garden's edge. "Is this enough?" Kira's large eyes widened as she saw the quantity of food. "Too much. We cannot repay." "I don't want repayment," Elena interrupted. "I want to help. Tell me about your children." A soft smile crossed Kira's alien features. "Zeph is 8, curious about everything. Nella is 5, loves to sing. And Tam," her voice caught. "Tam is only 2. He hasn't eaten properly since we arrived. Our food reserves ran out weeks ago." Alina's heart clenched. "What have you been surviving on?" "Wild plants, when we can identify safe ones. Small animals. But our biology is different from Earth creatures. Most of your wildlife makes us ill. But the vegetables work." "Yes, plant matter is universal. We can process most vegetable proteins and nutrients." Kira began loading the supplies into her basket. "You're saving our lives, Elena." "Where exactly is your ship?" Elena asked, helping transfer the food. Kira hesitated. 7 miles north, in a canyon hidden by the pine forests. "We crashed during a storm, lost our navigation systems. The hull is damaged but provides shelter." "Are there injured among your people?" "Many. Our medical officer died in the crash. We've been caring for the wounded as best we can, but we lack supplies, knowledge of human medicine." Elena made a decision that would change everything. "I have medical training. Basic field medicine from my research expeditions. I could help." "No." Kira's response was sharp, fearful. Too dangerous. If your people discover us, I won't tell anyone. You don't understand. We've monitored your communications. Your government is searching for us. They know we're here. Ice formed in Alina's stomach. How do you know? Radio chatter. Military frequencies. They detected our crash site's energy signature, but haven't pinpointed our location yet. They're organizing search teams. Alina thought of the news reports she dismissed over the past months. Military exercises in the mountains, restricted airspace, official denials of anything unusual. The government wasn't just searching. They were hunting. How long do you think you have? Days, maybe weeks. Our ship's systems are mostly offline, but they're still scanning for electromagnetic signatures. Then we need to work faster. Alina's mind shifted into problem-solving mode. I'll bring more supplies tomorrow. Medical equipment, too. And I want to meet your people. Alina, you don't understand the risk. I understand perfectly. Alina's voice was firm. 47 refugees, including children, are hiding in the mountains while soldiers hunt them down. I know exactly what I'm risking. Kira studied her for a long moment. Why? Why would you endanger yourself for strangers from another world? Alina looked up at the stars beginning to appear in the darkening sky. 20 years ago, I was part of a botanical expedition in Somalia during the famine. I watched children starve while governments debated politics and aid organizations fought over jurisdiction. I swore then that if I ever had the power to feed hungry children, I would. I don't care what planet they come from. Tears definitely gleamed in Kira's eyes now. Our people have a saying, kindness grows in the soil of courage. I think you understand this. Tomorrow night, I follow you to your ship, Alina said decisively. Those children need medical attention, and I need to see what we're really dealing with. Kira nodded slowly. I'll speak with our council. But Alina, once you cross this line, there's no going back. Your world will see you as a traitor. Alina looked at her garden, at the empty boxes that had held food for starving children, at this brave alien mother who risked capture every night to feed her young. Then I guess I know which world I choose. As Kira vanished into the darkness, Alina stood alone under the stars, feeling the weight of destiny settling on her shoulders. Tomorrow night, she would meet 47 refugees from another world. Tomorrow night, she would discover just how far human compassion could stretch across the galaxy. The government was coming, time was running out, and Elena Martinez, retired botanist, was about to become something she'd never imagined. A guardian of alien children in a world that would destroy them without hesitation. The hike through the mountain forest tested Alina's aging body, but Kira moved ahead with fluid grace despite her injured leg. They traveled by moonlight, following deer paths and avoiding the main trails where military patrols might venture. Alina carried a backpack filled with medical supplies and canned foods, every step taking her further from the world she knew. Are you certain about this? Kira asked during a rest stop. Once my people see you, there will be no pretending this encounter never happened. Alina wiped sweat from her forehead, breathing hard in the thin mountain air. I've been thinking about those children all day. Medical training won't help them if I'm sitting in my kitchen. They climbed for another hour before Kira stopped at what appeared to be solid rock face. She pressed her elongated fingers against specific points on the stone, and a section slid away with barely a whisper of sound. Beyond lay a narrow passage leading downward. Camouflaged entrance, Kira explained. The canyon is completely hidden from above. The passage opened into a vast natural amphitheater carved from red stone, moonlight filtering through gaps in the rock ceiling above. And there, nestled against the far wall like a sleeping metal giant, sat their ship. Alina's breath caught. The vessel was beautiful and terrible, its silver hull scored by the crash, but still maintaining an elegant, organic shape that seemed grown rather than built. Lights flickered along its surface, and she could see figures moving around its base. Tall, thin silhouettes that moved with Kira's same fluid grace. Magnificent, Elena whispered. The sanctuary, Kira said with pride and sadness. She carried us across the galaxy, but I fear she'll never fly again. As they approached, alien faces turned toward them. Elena felt dozens of large, dark eyes studying her with mixtures of curiosity, fear, and hope. The refugees varied in age and size, but all shared that same pale blue skin and elongated features. Many showed signs of injury or malnutrition. An elderly alien approached, his movements careful and dignified despite obvious pain. Silver tendrils crowned his head, and intricate patterns were tattooed across his forehead. Elder Voss, Kira said respectfully. This is Elena, the human who has been providing food. Elder Voss studied Elena with ancient eyes. When he spoke, his English was more formal than Kira's. You risk much to help strangers, Elena of Earth. Why? Because children are children, regardless of which world they call home. Elena replied simply. A small figure darted between the adults. A child no bigger than a human toddler, with the same blue skin, but larger eyes that seemed to hold infinite curiosity. He tugged on Kira's clothing, chattering in their musical language. This is Tam, Kira said, lifting the child. My youngest. Elena's heart melted. Despite his alien features, Tam was unmistakably a tired, hungry child seeking comfort from his mother. When he saw Elena, he didn't show fear, only the shy interest of a 2-year-old meeting a stranger. Hello, Tam, Elena said softly, offering her hand. The child reached out with his 6-fingered hand and touched her palm, giggling at the difference in their skin. The sound was pure joy, transcending species. You see, Elder Voss said quietly. Children adapt faster than adults. They don't see alien, they see friend or stranger, kind or cruel. Perhaps we should learn from them. Elena looked around the camp and saw the full scope of their situation. Makeshift shelters built from salvaged ship materials. Adults caring for injured companions with inadequate supplies. Children playing quiet games that wouldn't attract attention from above. These weren't invaders or threats. They were families trying to survive. How many are injured? She asked. 17, replied a female alien who approached carrying what looked like medical equipment. I am Dr. Yenna, Arc Healer, but my knowledge doesn't extend to treating injuries with earth materials. Elena set down her backpack and began unpacking medical supplies. Then let's combine our knowledge. Show me what you're dealing with. The next several hours passed in a blur of medical consultation and treatment. Elena found that despite their different biology, the refugees responded well to basic human first aid. She cleaned wounds, applied bandages, and distributed antibiotics while Dr. Yenna explained their physiology. Your world's gravity is lighter than ours, Dr. Yenna noted as Elena splinted a child's broken arm. It helps with healing, but our bones are denser, require different support. Elena worked steadily, moving from patient to patient. A teenager with infected cuts from the crash. An adult with a dislocated shoulder that hadn't healed properly. An elderly woman with respiratory problems from breathing Earth's different atmospheric composition. But it was the children who broke her heart and filled it simultaneously. They gathered around her with curiosity rather than fear, chattering in their musical language and showing her drawings they'd made on pieces of metal. Despite their circumstances, they laughed and played like children everywhere. They don't understand how much danger we're in, Kira said, watching her daughter Nella demonstrate a song for Elena. We try to keep them hopeful. Hope is good, Elena replied, checking the little girl's pulse with gentle fingers. But we need more than hope. How much time do you think you have before the military finds this place? Elder Voss overheard the question. Their search pattern is methodical but slow. Perhaps 10 days, if we're fortunate. Then we need to make plans. All of you can't stay here much longer. Where would we go? Dr. Yena asked. Our ship cannot fly. We have no resources, no legal status on your world. If your government finds us, we'll be imprisoned or worse. Alina looked around at the faces watching her. Adults who had lost everything. Children who deserved a future. An entire community depending on one human woman's conscience. I have an idea, she said slowly. But it's going to require trust, courage, and perfect timing. As dawn approached and Elena prepared to return home, little Tam wrapped his arms around her leg, not wanting to let go. Kira gently extracted him, but his large eyes followed Elena with the absolute trust that only children can give. I'll be back tomorrow night, Elena promised, with more supplies and a plan. The return hike through the forest gave her time to think. 47 lives depending on her decisions. The weight of that responsibility should have terrified her, but instead it filled her with determination she hadn't felt in years. By the time she reached her garden, Elena knew exactly what she had to do. It would require calling in favors from old colleagues, spending money she'd saved for retirement, and risking everything she'd built. But Tam's trusting eyes and Nala's songs were worth any risk. Elena spent the morning making phone calls that would either save 47 lives or destroy her own. Her first call was to Dr. Sarah Chen, a former colleague from her university days who now worked for the Centers for Disease Control in Atlanta. Elena, good God, it's been 5 years. How are you enjoying retirement? Sarah, I need to ask you something, and I need you to trust me completely. The line went quiet for a moment. That sounds ominous. What's going on? If a group of refugees arrived in the United States, people fleeing violence, carrying possible diseases we hadn't encountered before, what would be the proper medical protocol? Well, that's oddly specific, Sarah said carefully. Are we talking hypothetically, or... Hypothetically, what would happen to them? Immediate quarantine and medical evaluation. CDC would coordinate with immigration and customs, probably Homeland Security too. Why are you asking? Elena closed her eyes. If these hypothetical refugees were unusual in some way, different, what would happen then? Elena, you're scaring me. Different how? Just different. Very different. Sarah's voice became professional, cautious. Any unusual population would require extensive medical evaluation. If they presented unknown health risks, the protocols would be thorough. Elena, what aren't you telling me? If I were to call you in 3 days and tell you I had a medical emergency involving unusual patients, would you come? No questions asked. Elena, I can't promise that without knowing. Sarah, we've known each other for 20 years. Have I ever asked you for anything? Ever given you reason not to trust my judgment? A long pause. No, you haven't. Then please, if I call, will you come? Yes, Sarah said quietly. I'll come. Elena's second call was to her lawyer, updating her will. Her third was to her bank, arranging for a large cash withdrawal. Her fourth was to a reporter she'd worked with during her Somalia expedition, someone who understood the difference between a story and the right story. By afternoon, she had assembled the framework of a plan that terrified and exhilarated her in equal measure. That evening, she loaded her truck with more supplies than ever before. Medical equipment purchased with her retirement savings, camping gear, batteries and portable lights, enough food to feed an army, or a small community of refugees. The drive to the forest was different this time. She knew she was crossing a line she could never uncross. After tonight, she would be committed completely to protecting these aliens, no matter the cost. Kira met her at the forest edge, but she wasn't alone. 3 other adults accompanied her, including Elder Voss and Dr. Yena. Their expressions were grave. We need to talk, Kira said without preamble. Elena's stomach tightened. What's happened? Military aircraft passed over the canyon twice today, Elder Voss replied. They're getting closer. We may have less time than we thought. They'd hiked quickly through the moonlit forest, and Elena noticed the aliens moved with new urgency. When they reached the hidden entrance, she saw the camp had changed dramatically. Supplies were packed, ready for quick evacuation. The ship's lights had been dimmed to almost nothing. We're preparing to abandon the sanctuary, Dr. Yenna explained as they walked through the canyon. But we have nowhere to go. Elena found herself surrounded by worried faces, 47 beings whose fate might rest in her hands. Children clung to their parents, sensing the adult anxiety even if they didn't understand it. She saw Tam in Kira's arms, his large eyes reflecting the dim starlight. I have a plan, Elena announced, her voice carrying clearly in the quiet canyon. But it requires all of you to trust me completely. We're listening, Elder Voss said. Elena took a deep breath. In 3 days, you're going to surrender. The reaction was immediate and explosive. Adults gasped. Children began crying. Voices rose in their musical language with clear tones of fear and anger. Elena, no. Kira protested. You don't understand what your government will do to us. Listen to me. Elena raised her voice over the commotion. You're going to surrender, but not to the military, to the Centers for Disease Control. Elder Voss held up a hand for silence. Explain. Medical refugees, Elena said, pacing in front of the group. You're not invaders or military threats. You're sick refugees fleeing a plague on your homeworld. You came to Earth seeking medical assistance. But we're not sick, Dr. Yenna objected. You will be, Elena replied grimly. Nothing life-threatening, but obvious enough to require immediate medical attention. Something that makes you clearly non-threatening, just people in need of help. Kira's eyes widened with understanding. The children, too. Especially the children. Sick children generate sympathy, not fear. The CDC will want to help, not imprison. This is incredibly dangerous, Elder Voss said slowly. If your deception is discovered, then we'll all face the consequences together, Elena replied. But if we do nothing, you'll be discovered anyway, and then you'll face imprisonment or worse with no allies at all. She looked around at the frightened faces. I have a contact at the CDC who will respond to a medical emergency call. She's someone I trust, someone who became a doctor to help people. When she sees sick children, she'll fight to protect them. And if she doesn't? Kira asked. Then I'll make sure the story gets out to the right reporters before anyone can cover it up. Sick refugee children being mistreated by the government. That's a story that could change public opinion. Dr. Yenna stepped forward. What kind of illness are you proposing? Something visible, but not contagious. Respiratory distress from your world's different atmosphere. Nutritional deficiencies from being unable to process Earth foods properly. Injuries from the crash that have become infected. Elena pulled medical supplies from her pack. I can create symptoms that will look serious but respond quickly to treatment. The key is making you appear vulnerable, not dangerous. Elder Voss was quiet for several minutes, consulting in low voices with other adults. Finally, he turned back to Elena. This plan requires us to put our lives entirely in human hands. To trust not just you, but your entire species' capacity for compassion. Yes, Elena said simply. It does. And you? What happens to you when your government discovers you've been helping us? Elena thought of her comfortable retirement, her quiet garden, her peaceful life. Then she looked at Tam sleeping in his mother's arms, at the other children huddled close to their families. I'm 60 years old, she said. I've lived my life. These children haven't had that chance yet. The silence stretched long, filled with the weight of an impossible decision. Finally, it was broken by an unexpected voice. I trust Elena, said Nola, Kira's 5-year-old daughter, speaking in careful English. She brings food. She helps Papa's hurt arm. Good humans help. From the mouths of babes, Alina thought. Sometimes the most profound wisdom came from those too young to understand complexity. Elder Voss smiled at the child, then looked at Alina with ancient, knowing eyes. Very well. We place our fate in your hands, Alina of Earth. May your species prove worthy of a child's trust. The transformation of 47 healthy refugees into convincing medical patients required careful choreography. Alina worked with Dr. Yenna through the night, using makeup techniques and harmless substances to create symptoms that would alarm human doctors without actually endangering the aliens. Pale blue skin was tinted slightly gray with theatrical makeup. Breathing was made labored by having the adults hyperventilate slightly before examinations. The children were coached to appear listless and weak, though their natural fear of the unknown helped sell the performance. Remember, Alina instructed as she applied fake rash symptoms to Elder Voss's arms, you're not prisoners or invaders. You're medical refugees seeking help. Act grateful for assistance, not defiant. Dr. Yenna proved remarkably adept at mimicking human medical distress. On our world, I studied your species' biological responses. I can replicate many symptoms convincingly. The hardest part was preparing the ship for discovery. They had to make it look like a vessel damaged beyond repair, carrying desperate people rather than advanced technology. Alina helped them disable non-essential systems and hide anything that might appear militarily significant. By dawn, they were ready. Alina made the call to Dr. Sarah Chen from her cell phone, standing in the canyon with 47 alien refugees depending on her words. Sarah, it's Alina. I have that medical emergency I mentioned. Alina, where are you? You sound strange. I'm in the mountains north of Millbrook. I need you to come here personally, and I need you to bring a small medical team, people you trust completely. Alina, I can't just. Sarah, there are 47 refugees here, including 17 children. They're very sick, possibly dying. They need immediate medical attention, but they're terrified of being turned over to immigration authorities. Silence on the line. Then, what kind of refugees? Alina closed her eyes. The kind that will change everything we thought we knew about the universe. Alina, what the hell are you talking about? Please, just come. Bring medical supplies, food, and people who became doctors to save lives, not advance careers. And Sarah, when you see them, remember that children are children, no matter where they come from. You're scaring me. I'm scared too. But these children will die without help, and they deserve better than that. Sarah's voice became professional. Give me coordinates. We'll be there in 6 hours. Alina provided GPS coordinates for a clearing 2 miles from the canyon, then helped the refugees prepare for the most important performance of their lives. As they practiced looking sick and desperate, she couldn't help but notice they didn't have to act very hard. The fear in her eyes was completely genuine. What if your friend doesn't believe us? Kira asked, holding Tam close to her chest. She will, Alina said with more confidence than she felt. Sarah's a good doctor. She'll see sick children and want to help them. Elder Voss approached, looking genuinely frail with the makeup and posture adjustments. Alina, we need to discuss what happens if this plan fails. It won't fail. But if it does, we want you to know, whatever happens to us, you've given us hope. You've shown us that some humans can see past fear to compassion. Alina felt tears threatening. Save the speeches for when you're all safe. The trek to the meeting point took 3 hours, with frequent stops for the aliens to rest, both for the performance and because several were genuinely weakened by weeks of poor nutrition. Alina helped carry the smallest children, amazed by how light they were despite their tall frames. They waited in the forest clearing, a pitiful group of refugees huddled together for warmth and comfort. Alina coached them once more on their story. They were from a distant world affected by solar radiation. Their ship had crashed during an emergency evacuation. They were seeking medical sanctuary, not invasion. The sound of helicopters approaching made everyone tense. Elena saw military aircraft in the distance, the search teams getting closer to discovering the canyon. Their timing couldn't be more critical. Dr. Sarah Chen emerged from the lead helicopter with 3 other medical personnel, all wearing CDC hazmat suits. Elena watched her friend's face through the clear visor as she saw the aliens for the first time. Sarah stopped dead, her mouth opening in shock. For a terrifying moment, Elena thought she might call for military backup. Then professional instincts kicked in. "My God," Sarah whispered, approaching slowly. "Elena, what? Who are they?" "Refugees," Elena said firmly. "Medical refugees seeking sanctuary." Sarah's team stood frozen, but Sarah herself knelt next to a cluster of alien children, her medical training overriding her shock. She reached for her portable scanner, checking vital signs with steady hands. "Respiratory distress," she observed, her voice returning to professional calm. "Possible nutritional deficiencies. Signs of infection in several individuals." "Will you help them?" Elena asked. Sarah looked up from examining little Tam, who had begun crying weakly in his mother's arms. Elena saw the moment when her friend's humanity overcame her fear. "We're going to need a lot more medical supplies," Sarah said to her team. "And we need to establish a sterile field hospital immediately." Dr. Chen, one of her colleagues, protested, "Shouldn't we report this to?" "We report to the CDC," Sarah said firmly. "These are medical patients under our jurisdiction now. We treat first, ask questions later." Elena felt a wave of relief so intense she nearly collapsed. The first hurdle was cleared. But as she watched Sarah's team begin ministering to the refugees, she knew the real challenges were just beginning. Military helicopters still circled in the distance. Government officials would soon learn about the discovery, and 47 alien lives now depended on whether human bureaucracy could show the same compassion that Dr. Sarah Chen had demonstrated in the face of the impossible. "Elena," Kira whispered as medical personnel checked her children, "will they separate us?" Elena watched Sarah gently examining Nala, speaking in soothing tones despite the language barrier, treating her exactly as she would any sick human child. "Not if I have anything to say about it." The battle for 47 alien souls had just begun. The media storm erupted within hours. Elena had expected government interference, but she hadn't anticipated how quickly the story would leak. By sunset, news vans surrounded the makeshift medical camp that Dr. Chen's team had established in the mountain clearing. Reporters shouted questions while military personnel tried to establish a perimeter. "Dr. Martinez, is it true you've been harboring illegal aliens? Are they dangerous? Why are they here? What does the government plan to do with them?" Elena ignored the chaos, focusing on the refugees who now lay in proper medical beds under sterile field tents. Sarah's team had worked miracles in just a few hours, providing IV fluids, antibiotics, and proper nutrition to beings whose biology they were learning in real time. "The good news is they're responding well to treatment," Sarah reported, pulling Elena aside. "The bad news is we have bigger problems than medical ones." Through the tent flap, Elena could see black SUVs arriving. Government officials in dark suits emerging. Military personnel setting up communications equipment. "They want to transfer the patients to a secure facility," Sarah continued quietly. "Separate the adults from the children for individual questioning." "Absolutely not," Elena said firmly. "Elena, I don't think we have a choice. This is way above both our pay grades now." A commotion outside caught their attention. Elder Voss, despite his weakened condition, had risen from his medical bed and was walking toward the government officials. Several refugees followed, forming a protective circle around their leader. Elena rushed outside to hear him speaking in clear, dignified English. "I am Elder Voss, leader of the survivors from Kepler 442 bits. We come seeking sanctuary, not as invaders, but as refugees fleeing the death of our world. Agent Morrison, the apparent leader of the government team, stepped forward. Sir, you and your people need to come with us for questioning. This is a matter of national security. We have children among us. Elder Voss replied calmly. Sick children who require medical care. We will not be separated from them. That's not your decision to make. Elena stepped between them. Actually, it is. Agent Morrison turned his cold stare on her. Dr. Martinez, you're already in serious legal trouble. I'd suggest you not make things worse. These people are under medical quarantine. Elena announced loudly enough for the reporters to hear. The CDC has jurisdiction over medical refugees, not Homeland Security. Sarah Chen emerged from the medical tent, still wearing her hazmat suit. Agent Morrison, these patients are critically ill. Moving them now could be fatal, especially for the children. Dr. Chen, with respect, this is a national security matter that supersedes medical concerns. Nothing supersedes the Hippocratic Oath, Sarah replied firmly. First, do no harm. These are sick children, Agent Morrison. Would you really risk their lives for bureaucratic protocol? Elena watched the standoff with growing tension. Around them, cameras rolled and reporters scribbled notes. The story was spreading beyond anyone's control now. Little Tam chose that moment to begin crying weakly from his medical bed. The sound cut through the political posturing like a knife, reminding everyone what was really at stake. Kira started toward her son, but a soldier moved to block her path. Let her go to her child, Elena said sharply. Mom, we have orders. Let her go to her child. Elena's voice carried across the clearing with such authority that even Agent Morrison looked surprised. The soldier hesitated, then stepped aside. Kira rushed to Tam's bedside, lifting him gently and singing the same lullaby Elena had heard in the canyon. The alien melody was hauntingly beautiful, and gradually the child's cries subsided. A reporter near the perimeter lowered her camera, tears visible on her face. Elena recognized the moment when the narrative shifted. These weren't threats or invaders. They were parents and children, families trying to survive. Dr. Martinez, Agent Morrison said quietly, pulling her aside. You need to understand the position you've put us all in. These beings have technology we've never seen. Their ship contains materials and systems that could revolutionize human civilization or threaten it. They're refugees, not conquerors, Elena replied. How can you be so certain? You've known them for what, a few days? Elena looked back at the medical camp, where Dr. Yenna was helping Sarah's team understand alien physiology, where Elder Voss sat patiently answering questions despite his exhaustion, where alien children played quietly with toys that human nurses had brought from town. Because I've seen how they treat their children, she said simply. A species that loves its young the way they do isn't a threat to anyone. Agent Morrison's expression softened slightly. Dr. Martinez, I have children too. But I also have responsibilities to national security. There has to be a middle ground here. Before Elena could respond, her phone rang. The caller ID showed a number she didn't recognize, but when she answered, the voice was familiar. Dr. Martinez, this is Senator Elizabeth Warren's office. The senator would like to speak with you. Elena's eyebrows rose. Senator Warren. Within minutes, her phone became a relay station for calls from politicians, scientists, and international organizations. Word of the alien refugees had reached the highest levels of government, and everyone wanted to understand the situation. The most significant call came from Dr. James Patterson, director of NASA. Dr. Martinez, I'm calling to offer NASA's full support for these refugees. We've been hoping for first contact for decades. Not like this, obviously, but we have protocols in place for exactly this situation. What kind of protocols? Elena asked. Humanitarian ones. The scientific community established guidelines years ago for how to handle refugee populations from other worlds. The priority is always protection and assistance, not exploitation. Elena felt a surge of hope. Can you get here? I'm already en route. And Dr. Martinez, what you did, taking care of them, protecting those children, that took extraordinary courage. As the day wore on, the situation began to stabilize into an uneasy standoff. The refugees remained in the medical camp under CDC care, while government officials debated jurisdiction and protocols. Media attention kept everyone honest. It was hard to mistreat sick children when the world was watching. Elena spent the evening moving between medical tents, checking on patients, and translating between human medical staff and alien physiology. She found Kira sitting beside Tam's bed, where the little boy was finally sleeping peacefully after receiving proper nutrition and medical care. He's going to be fine, Elena said softly. Thanks to you, Kira replied. All of us, thanks to you. I just did what anyone should have done. Kira's large eyes studied Elena's face. No, you did what only someone with great courage would do. You risked everything for strangers. For children, Elena corrected. For the future. Dr. Patterson arrived that night with a small team of NASA scientists and xenobiologists. Unlike the government agents, he approached the refugees with wonder and respect, treating them as honored guests rather than potential threats. This is the most significant moment in human history, he told Elena privately. First contact with an intelligent alien species, and it's happening because one retired botanist shows compassion over fear. But Elena knew the real test was still coming. Government agencies were still debating what to do with the refugees long term. Some voices called for indefinite detention and study. Others pushed for immediate deportation, though to where, no one could say. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Elder Voss had been quietly working with NASA's linguists and anthropologists, sharing information about his people's culture, their dying world, and their journey to Earth. Late that night, he made an announcement that changed everything. We wish to apply for refugee status under Earth's international humanitarian laws, he declared to the assembled officials, reporters, and scientists. We offer our knowledge freely, our understanding of interstellar travel, our medical techniques, our agricultural methods, not as payment, but as contribution. We wish to become productive members of Earth society. Dr. Patterson stepped forward immediately. NASA formally sponsors this application. These people have knowledge that could benefit all humanity, but more importantly, their families seeking safety. That's something every human can understand. Agent Morrison looked conflicted. The security implications are manageable, Patterson interrupted. We've been preparing for this possibility for decades. We have facilities, protocols, integration programs. These refugees can be monitored and assisted without being imprisoned. Elena watched the faces around the clearing. Government officials weighing politics against humanity. Scientists eager for new knowledge, reporters sensing a story that could define their careers, and in the center of it all, 47 beings from another world who just wanted to live in peace. The moment that decided everything came when little Nala, Kira's 5-year-old daughter, walked up to Agent Morrison with a drawing she'd made. It showed stick figures of humans and aliens holding hands under a smiling sun. For you, she said in careful English, offering the picture with a shy smile. Agent Morrison stared down at her, this alien child who had crossed the galaxy and survived a crash and weeks of hunger, now offering friendship to a man who held her family's future in his hands. He knelt down to her level and accepted the drawing. Thank you, he said quietly. It's beautiful. When he stood up, his expression had changed completely. Dr. Patterson, let's discuss those integration protocols. I think we can make this work. 3 weeks later, Elena stood in her garden again, but everything had changed. The refugees were living in a temporary facility NASA had established nearby, not a prison, but a genuine integration center where they could recover, learn about Earth culture, and begin building new lives. Kira visited every few days, bringing her children to help Elena tend the vegetables. Tam had recovered completely and delighted in digging in the soil with his six-fingered hands. Nala sang her alien songs to the tomato plants. Zeph asked endless questions about botany and agriculture. The first permanent housing should be ready next month, Kira reported as they worked together in the afternoon sun. NASA says they want to establish a research partnership, our knowledge combined with human resources. A genuine collaboration. Elena smiled, watching Tam chase a butterfly between the corn stalks. What will you research? Sustainable agriculture, primarily. Methods to help both our species thrive on the same world. Kira paused in her weeding. Elder Voss says this is how real integration happens, not conquest or submission, but mutual growth. That evening, as the alien family prepared to leave, Elena reflected on how much had changed since that first night when she discovered a desperate mother stealing tomatoes. Elena. Tam called out in his improving English, running back to hug her legs. Elena. Tam called out in his improving English, running back to hug her legs. Tomorrow, I help plants grow. Tomorrow, you help plants grow, she confirmed, ruffling his wispy tendrils. As they disappeared into the twilight, Elena looked up at the stars, no longer distant points of light, but potential homes for countless beings like these. The universe had become a much larger, more wondrous place. Her phone rang, interrupting her reverie. Dr. Patterson's voice was excited. Elena, we just received a message from space. Another ship requesting permission to land. They heard about our refugee program through some kind of interstellar communication network. Elena's heart raced. How many? 123 beings from a different world. Different species entirely. Their planet was destroyed by an asteroid impact. Elena looked at her garden, at the empty spaces where she could plant more vegetables, at the vast night sky filled with infinite possibilities. I'll need to expand the garden, she said simply. Dr. Patterson chuckled. Elena Martinez, alien gardener. Has a nice ring to it. As Elena stood under the stars, she realized that her quiet retirement had ended the night she chose compassion over fear. Now she was part of something much larger, humanity's first steps toward becoming a true galactic community. And it had all started with a mother's love and a handful of stolen tomatoes. The universe, it turned out, was full of gardens waiting to be planted.